You may have mastered the toothy grin, but chances are you haven't tried these 5 creative ways to decorate pumpkins. If you're new here, I'm Sarah, and today I'll show you how I use my Cricut cutting machine to DIY some very festive pumpkins. If you don't have a Cricut though, I've got you covered with alternative methods in the description below. I'll be using craft pumpkins for all the projects today because as cute as these turned out, I know I'll want to pull them out year after year. You could also achieve a similar look using real pumpkins. So let's snap to it with our first pumpkin. Everyone is familiar with the countdown to Christmas, but here's a cute way to add some Halloween anticipation to your fall decor. I'm going to start with one of my smaller craft pumpkins and measure out the approximate dimensions of the area I want to place the image. In this case, about 4 by 4 inches. Next, I'll hop over to Cricut Design Space, the free software where you create designs prior to making them. I'll start a new project and insert a square shape, resize to 4 by 4, and change the color to white. This is only going to act as my template for the project to help make sure my design is the desired size to fit on my pumpkin. We'll hide or delete the square template prior to actually cutting the project out. Next, I'm going to upload an image of a ghost I found online and insert it into my design space. You can see the default size is way bigger than my template, so I'll resize it to fit within. Then it's time to add a couple text boxes for the desired phrasing, and I'll resize till I'm happy with the layout. All of the font names can be found in the description below as well. Now, Forgetful Me realized I'm going to be placing these on an orange pumpkin, so I'm going to change my template color to orange so I can see how the black and white will pop against it. I'll make some final tweaks to the layout here. And with this script font, it's really important to weld your text before you cut, which essentially fuses the letters into one large cohesive cut instead of cuts for each individual letter. I'll be cutting out the ghost with chalkboard vinyl so that you can write and erase on this surface over and over. Once my pieces are cut out, I'll pull out the negative space, or what's referred to as weeding in Cricut craft lingo. Next, I'll find the side of the pumpkin I want to place the image on and start smoothing the vinyl down. The chalkboard vinyl is pretty sturdy, and with this large piece, I didn't bother with any transfer tape. After working with vinyl on many pumpkins, I can definitely say using your fingers to apply the vinyl to a round surface was the easiest approach. Here's another tip: have an X-Acto knife nearby. For areas where I had those inevitable ripples in the vinyl, I learned you could just use the X-Acto knife to make a small incision in the vinyl, then lay those two pieces flat on top of one another, just as shown here. Next, I'll add my text by applying transfer tape and then placing them in their desired spot. You can use any chalk to count down to the spookiest day of the year. A damp cloth will wipe completely clean. So cool. And finally, here's how it looks in my entryway. Fair warning on this next project. If you make it, you'll have friends, family, neighbors knocking down your door for one too. I'll be taking one of my larger white craft pumpkins and adding family name personalization. It's made so easy by Cricut Design Space. So let's check it out. Let's start in Cricut Design Space, where I've already templated the desired size of the image based on my pumpkin. The family name I'll be adding to the pumpkin is Anderson, so my first step is to add a text box and then type the letter A, which I'll resize to nearly fill the template. Next, I'll add a second text box with the full spelling of the last name. Again, fonts are listed in the description below. Then I'll resize the word Anderson so it's a nice scale to the large initial in the background. I have a change of heart here on the font, and then I'll use the handy alignment feature to center the letter and the text. I do this by selecting both the A in the background, then clicking Shift and selecting the word Anderson. Then you just go to Alignment and select Center Horizontally. Once you're happy with the layout, select the text with the full spelling of the last name, and then select Weld to change it from text to a single object. Okay, now comes the magic. I don't want the initial and the last name to overlap, so I'm going to show you how you can use the offset feature to quickly eliminate the overlap for a super clean result. First, I'll select the full spelling of the last name and then click Offset from the menu bar. I'll zoom in here so you can see the thin blue line creating an almost cloud-like shape behind the text. Use the distance slider to make that cloud bigger or smaller. I'm going to make it slightly smaller here to 0.125 inches so we have a sharp defined space between the initial and the last name. Then hit Apply. Now you can see we have this new shape called the Weld Result Offset in the right layers bar. We're going to slice that Weld Result Offset through the large initial A in the background to give us the perfect cutout for the text to shine. Think of the black weld offset like a cookie cutter pressing down into the large letter A to slice through it. Now, to actually do that, click on the large initial A in the background, hold shift and then select the black weld result offset. Next, hit slice and wait a few seconds for the action to take place. Now you'll see several new slice results show up in your layers menu on the right. And your image may look a little wonky like this, but don't fret, this is the messy middle. All we have to do is delete the slice results we don't want and we'll reveal our final product. Delete everything in the layers menu except for the large initial slice result and the layer with our full last name. If you accidentally delete the wrong layer, you can always undo. Before going to actually make this, be sure to delete the template in the background. Also, attach your large initial and the last name objects together so that this will all cut in one fixed position. I cut my design on black permanent vinyl, then weeded out the negative space. I cut out a piece of transfer tape to size and burnished down that transfer tape on top of the image. Then we'll peel off the white carrier sheet on the back and we're ready to apply this vinyl to the pumpkin. Now this is a pretty large flat image to place on a round surface, so here are some tips. Bring your patience and your beverage of choice. Cut off any excess transfer tape to make the whole thing less bulky. Use your fingers to smooth the vinyl over the pumpkin surface instead of a spatula. Don't forget the X-Acto knife trick to help ripples lay flat. I ended up actually having to physically slice the top of the A in order to get it to lay flat, as shown here in the video. Don't stress if you can't fix every ripple or bubble. The next steps here will really elevate the look and minimize any imperfections. Now to finish up this pumpkin, I'll take a piece of lamb's ear greenery about 18 inches long and wrap it around the stem and bring the two pieces together with some floral wire. Finally, I'll take this black and white store-bought bow and affix it to the greenery. And now check out this adorable finished product. I'm so proud of how this turned out. For this easy but striking color block pumpkin, I'm going to start by taping off a nice bold stripe around the center of the pumpkin using some painter's tape. Then I'll cover the top and bottom with some craft paper. Moving to a well-ventilated area, I'll give the exposed part of the pumpkin 2 coats of white spray paint. While that's drying, let's move into design space. Now, if fall means anything in my house, it's football. So I'm going to add some text into my template here for our favorite football team. If football's not your thing, you could also add your favorite fall saying. I'll cut out my text, weed out the negative space, and apply transfer tape so this is ready to apply to the pumpkin. Once my pumpkin's dry, I'll grab it, remove my craft paper, pull off the painter's tape, and wow, that is not looking so crisp. But I did find I was able to clean up most of this overspray with some rubbing alcohol and a cloth. I'll adhere the text inside of the painted color block, and that's it. You could also add a cute bow or greenery to this one as well, but I've humored my husband and actually styled this one with one of his favorite things to decorate with: bobbleheads. For our next project, we're going to take advantage of the fact that these craft pumpkins are actually carvable. I'm going to create a layered effect with the word BOO, then actually carve out the inside of the letters to create a festive jack-o'-lantern look. First, I'll create a text box with the word BOO and select Weld to turn the text into an object. This is a required step in order to use that handy offset feature again. To create the offset, select the word and then hit offset. I increased the distance of the offset so I had one contiguous shape encasing the text. Then hit apply. I'm going to cut the offset piece in a copper foil vinyl, so I'm going to change the color in design space just to a gold color here to indicate it's a separate color. When it's time to put this vinyl on the pumpkin, we want to make sure that we can actually remove the gold from inside of the letters, so I'm going to achieve that by using the slicing feature. I'm going to do this by selecting both objects, then hitting slice. The best way, again, to think about slicing is like a cookie cutter. The word BOO is the cutter, and I'm slicing into the gold background. I'm going to delete the gold slice result and hide the black text just temporarily so you can see how the slice worked. Now we're actually ready to cut and apply to the pumpkin. I cut the outer layer in a copper foil vinyl and the text in a permanent black vinyl. I did not transfer the insides of the letters because in the next step we're actually going to carve those out. I tried a few different tools for carving on the craft pumpkins and found that an X-Acto knife worked best for me and resulted in the smoothest and most predictable cuts. The edges definitely do not need to be perfect because in this next step here, we're going to paint the exposed edge in a black paint, which will hide most imperfections. I placed battery-operated micro lights inside of a hole I cut at the bottom of the pumpkin to give it that jack-o'-lantern effect, and here's how cute it turned out. finally, that brings us to our last style, which was inspired by a really elegant pumpkin I saw on Garden Road with a price tag to match. I knew I could recreate a similar look using the print and cut option with Cricut. I searched for a floral pattern on designbundles.net and found this blue pattern that I thought would be really pretty. I know this is intended for a plate, but by no means are you actually tied to that. I purchased the design for a few bucks, then uploaded the image into Design Space following the prompts. I uploaded the JPEG file because I'm only interested in printing the flat image and not interested in cutting all the intricate layers into different colored materials, which would require the SVG file and a certain level of insanity. On the image upload type, I went with moderately complex. On the next page, you need to erase all the parts you don't want to print. I only want the blue floral images to print, so I'm using the erase wand to zap away all the parts I don't want. This also required using the eraser tool to clean up a few pesky areas, but really only took a few minutes. Once it's cleaned up, hit continue, select the print and cut image option on the right, then upload. Now our floral motif will show up in the recent images, and you can just easily select the image and insert. You can see I get a warning that the image is too big for print and cut, so I'm going to resize it down to smaller dimensions so I no longer get that warning. I'll be using StarCraft print and cut vinyl in this two-step process of first printing the design and loading it to your Cricut to cut. To print, go to Make It, then Send to Printer. In the print setup, select the desired printer, and I recommend adding the bleed, which will bleed the colors a little bit beyond the image borders to give you a very crisp look after cutting. Make sure you've loaded your print and cut vinyl to your printer, and then hit print. Once printed, you'll mount your print right side up in the mat and load to the Cricut and follow the prompts in Design Space to complete the cut. Your Cricut will use that thick black border to orient itself so it knows exactly where to cut around your image. Basically, if everything has gone right, you're going to end up with your own sheet of stickers. Now for the fun part, I'm just going to start randomly applying the stickers to a white pumpkin. I really like the look once I started layering the stickers together to give it a more vine-like appearance. I printed off several of these sheets to finish up the pumpkins. As a reminder, here was the inspiration, and here's how my pumpkins turned out on my kitchen table. So cute and a fraction of the price.
I hope you were inspired by these projects. Drop me a comment below which style you were most excited about and would love to hear the festive ways you plan to decorate this fall. Please hit that subscribe button so you'll be the first to know of all my new videos. Happy fall!